Awesome. So what I'm going to do, because there is so much information and just not nearly enough time, I'm going to just do a brief introduction, and then I will hand it over to Nyathon, who is our quorum member. So thank you so much for joining us. I've been looking forward to this session for a very long time. I'm Diane Silverman, the Executive Director of the Quorum Initiative. And today we are very honored to be hearing from women from the South Sudanese Women Intellectual Forum. Our session, Finding Their Voices, How South Sudanese Women Are Getting Their Messages Out, will have 3 women speaking. Asha, who's the founder of SSWI, Dr. Pita Lomole, who is a pediatrician and physician in Kenya, and also our quorum member, Nyathon Hoth, who's the program officer and researcher for the Department of Environment and National Resource Program in the Sudd Institute. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Nyathon. Asha and Dr. Ann, I've made you co-hosts so you can share your screens as you're ready. So thank you all very much. And I'm going to hand this over to Nyathon now.
Thank you, Diane. And hello, everyone. Welcome to Quorum Speaker Series for South Sudanese Women Intellectual Forum. My name is Nyathon Hoth, as Diane has just mentioned. I'm honored to be moderating this session today, but I'm going to wear 2 hats as well. I am part of the SSWI, so I'll be speaking a few things from there. A bit of myself, as Dan has said, on SSWI, I'm a moderator on the forum, and professionally, I am a researcher, and my research interest focuses on the intersection between climate change, women empowerment, and energy access. But before I introduce our presenters, I would like to set a context a little bit of what we are speaking here today, and I'm working, and it's going to relate to the topic of how are South Sudanese women putting their voices out there and how we're getting our messages out. And just even to start at the personal level before we even go to the presentation, it relates to even what I'm working on now. I'm actually working on a book, and this was inspired by the members of Quorum Initiative. And this is basically about broken roots, and it's going to be a memo about pain, hope, and resilience. And this really reflects so much, or resonate with a lot of South Sudanese women of my age, because we were born and raised in conflict, and our fathers being on the front line fighting, while our mothers basically took the responsibility of raising us single-handedly, and with a lot of traumatic experience for a lot of us. But some of us as well were lucky enough to find opportunity to move to places like the US, Canada, Australia. And at least that gave us hope to change our future and be able to acquire education and tools. And these are the women now, actually, the SSWI have brought together with a huge resilience, combining with our experiences and the little education and tools that we've acquired. We have decided to give back to the country and make South Sudan better than what we experiences for our generation and for our children. So I just want to set up, these are the kind of women Aisha and Dr. Ann will be speaking about today. And these are the women that are making change back in South Sudan. Enough of what I'm doing. Our first presenter today is Aisha Arabi. She is the founder of South Sudanese Women Intellectual Forum. Aisha has an extensive experience working in post-conflict countries and women, peace and security initiative, gender-based violence, women empowerment policies, and strategy. Aisha is currently an international consultant with the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, in various countries in Africa and in Asia Pacific. East Africa Community Women in Leadership Award recognized her outstanding leadership in promoting gender equality through her work with SSWI in 2000. I think it was last year or 2 years ago where she was awarded. Our second presenter is Dr. Pita Lomole. Anne is a medical doctor with extensive experience in pediatrics, infectious disease, and tropical medicine. She works as a pediatrician and infectious disease consultant at the Karen Hospital University, one of the best hospitals in Kenya. In addition to her medical career, Dr. Lomole actively promotes girls' education and has participated in various initiatives such as promotion and advocacy for girls' education in South Sudan. She is also a member of SSWI, where she volunteers to promote health education, gender equity, and civic education on the rights of women and South Sudanese in general. Aisha and Dr. Ann, the floor is yours. I'm going to start first, Aisha, with you. And I'm going to throw a question to you. And my question is, before you even go into your presentation, what's your personal motivation that really motivated you to start SSWI? To you, and then you can jump into your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thanks to everybody for having us today. It's been a tough journey, as a child.
Aisha, do you want to put your video on, or do you would like to present with the video off?
Because sometimes when I speak about emotional things, I would rather have my video off, and then I'll come back during the presentation to turn it on.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Yeah, so it's been a tough journey, As a child, my mom was a teacher, professional teacher. So one day she traveled for a professional training to Juba. And my dad was a businessman. So one morning, by then I was very young, under 8. So one morning my dad went to work as usual for his business. And my mom, of course, was not around, but she went with the hope that she was going to come back and join her family. But while she was away, conflict started. And as my dad went to the market, that was the last time that I ever saw him in my life. So he never returned home. And my mom was separated from us, so we couldn't hear from her. She didn't know whether we were alive or not. But then, one of the priests in South Sudan happened to connect with my sister, who was in a different part of the country, who had also gone to one of the universities in Kenya. So then the priest was able to facilitate my travel to Kenya, where I was a refugee as a child and struggled, to be where I am today, in terms of scholarship and everything. But that gave me a lot of hope. So after high school, I graduated, and of course, somebody like me, not having before that, my mom, I was lucky that my mom was able to be brought to Kenya. By then I was in boarding school. So they went and brought me from boarding, and then there were 2 women in the living room. So I was told to go and hug one woman, who maybe I thought was my mother. But when I went to the living room, I hugged the wrong person, who wasn't my mother, just to tell you that I couldn't recognize my own mother, But anyway, things happen in life. So eventually we started connecting. And after high school, of course, I didn't know how I was going to get to the university, but luckily I got a scholarship to Canada to do my bachelor's degree through World University at Service of Canada, WISC. So when I came to Canada, I completed my bachelor's, and then I went straight to a university for my master's and finished my master's. And immediately when the Comprehensive Peace Agreement was signed in South Sudan, I wanted to be part of the development of the country, because I knew what it meant to be growing up in war, what it meant to be separated, as a child from my family, and to grow up as an orphan, literally, and what it meant, to be running from one bush to the other and escaping all the bullets and stuff and harassment and so forth. So I knew the effect of conflict, on children. And as an adult, of course, this is something I grew up with all the trauma. So then I moved back to South Sudan to give back to my community. And in 2013, by then I had my first child. Conflict started in Juba. So I was right in Juba. So again, the trauma came back to me, because I was able to see again, the whole event coming back, my child, the worst situation during my childhood coming back. So I saw exactly what happened. But by then I also refused to come back to Canada, because I was told that I could, the embassy wanted to bring us back because of the conflict, but I still wanted to help the women and children in the country. Then we stayed in 2016 again, another conflict happened. By then I had 2 children. My husband was not in the house. So then I was the man and woman in the house. And this time it was brutal. It was bad, gunshot all over. I think at one point I was almost losing it. And when they were shooting near our house, instead of me going down, actually lying down, I just put my children and I was just folding my clothes. Like that was it, I had enough. But then again, I thought about the people who were staying with us, that I couldn't run and leave all the girls that I had brought to support with education. I told myself that if I leave today and then these people are killed, it will add more to the trauma I've gone through in my life. So, but if it's death, then it's okay. Even if I'm killed with all my children today, it's okay. I'm going to die for a cause, die for the cause of my country. So then immediately after the 2016 conflict, I was advised to actually move the children because my children now became so traumatized. So I decided to move them to Kenya. So when I moved them there, we got for them a place, and then all the girls who were staying with me also wanted to support them with education. So I moved them to Kenya. But then just after 3 months, I had traveled to see my children. So then we were attacked by thieves in the house. So about 6 armed men again came to the house and traumatized us, almost killed us. So, again, a very bad experience that my children couldn't stay anymore without me, being around them because they were so traumatized. So then I decided, maybe it was time for me to move first to Canada and try to see how to heal from all these experiences that I've gone through. But then moving back to Canada, I still had the heart of helping, even if it was going to be a very long, distance. I thought it would be good for us to do something as the women of South Sudan, as the women of the world, where we can actually bring a change to this world. So then on the internet, because of the conflict and the hatred that was going on in the country, the internet was turned, social media was turned into another, war zone, but this time virtual one, a lot of things were happening, too much hatred. So then I said, we have an opportunity in the global world actually to be able to, to turn things positively. Why not we start something, even if it's going to start virtually? We bring all these women, one segment of the community, because like people always assume that when a woman makes it in life, that woman cannot be put in another group where she can actually help back. So it's always about, let's help those vulnerable people. But then why can't we use also the women who have gone through a lot of this experience, to have a voice that will be able to talk on behalf of these other women. We needed mentors in South Sudan. Our young girls were going through a lot of problems. They needed mentors. We have doctors like Dr. Ann, even up to now when we have complications and not having access to doctors in South Sudan, it's very easy to connect with Dr. Ann, all our gynecologists, to inform them and to see how they can do consultation with these women. And this is what we've been doing. So that's also, some of the reasons, of course, that really motivated me to, to come up with this initiative where we can have our common voices and where we can all bring our women together. And with SSWI, we are having women from all, walks of life. We don't discriminate, because even those ones who are politicians, the reason why they're politicians is because they thought they could give a voice, of women, at the policy level. But again, it becomes very difficult because you can have women in power without power. But how do we motivate even our own politicians, women, to be able to speak on our behalf? How do we help them, even with the capacity building, preparing speeches for them that will reflect the actual life of the women of South Sudan? So that's how it all came about. But then now we're going to move to more of a, professional presentation, which we'll be doing shortly. Back to you, Nyathon.
Thank you, Asha. And I think that's a very touching story, as I could even connect what you're going through and what I went through as well as a child. And it's a common theme for all of us of what we experience. And I think it's really good as well for you to create the platform to be able to connect at personal level and try to make South Sudan a better place for daughters and also for the next generation. I think what we'll do, you'll just go straight to your presentation. If I don't know who's starting, Dr. Ann, or you maybe start first, and then Dr. Ann will take over. Okay, you're muted.
Aisha will start the presentation.
Okay.
Maybe you can share from your screen if you're able to, then I'll follow up after.
Okay.
Kindly share the presentation, Nyathon.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And you can also share, excuse me, Asha.
Yeah, because I think you have it. Maybe actually, because I think you're a co-host, both of you, Aisha and Dr. Ann, so you guys can share from your end.
Because I shared with you a different version. So, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I can
All
do
right.
it.
Mhm.
Let's see.
Dan, do you have it ready? Okay. All right.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll just go ahead and start the presentation.
Is that okay?
Is it okay?
Yeah, can you see that okay?
Can you see?
Aisha?
Yeah. From here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum was founded in 2020. So the forum is a registered not-for-profit organization with over 5,500 members and 36,000 followers, and with an outreach which is now close to 1 million South Sudanese across the globe. So the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum is a network of South Sudanese women from all ages, public life and sectors, including health, education, politics, legal, justice, agriculture, security, business, governance, civil society, and governmental organization. UN staff who are working with the United Nations, faith-based groups, among others. SSWI is a non-partisan and non-religious and does not have any affiliation with any group. Our only one goal is to bring together the women of South Sudan to foster peace and development. The forum was initiated to provide a platform for South Sudanese women to gain or share knowledge, provide mentorship, and have access to information and connections that will enable the women of South Sudan to participate in the post-conflict reconstruction of South Sudan. So the forum is committed to realizing a free, just, and equitable society. It also drives changes and participation through linking South Sudanese professional women globally through an online dialogue and participation. But now we've also moved to in-person participation within Juba and other parts of South Sudan. So the forum strives to solve some of the challenges facing South Sudanese women, not only in South Sudan, but also around the world, including our diaspora community. We've been getting a lot of questions about why we are doing online or virtual activities most of the time. You know, as the world goes digital, women are gradually being left behind. While the internet and digital technology can open a world of opportunities to all users, they also bring particular benefits to women. For example, in terms of health and safety in South Sudan, where medical facilities are very few and far between, the availability of internet can make it easy for women to access healthcare and receive critical information, as I stated before, through the knowledge that we already have. If it's, for example, the doctors that we have within the forum, then we also have the benefit on advocacy and awareness. So it's very easy to mobilize women around and give them information, and the information can reach even to the grassroots level within the shortest time. In terms of income and employment, as we all know that the global workforce is becoming increasingly digitalized. When women do not gain digital or internet skills, they miss out other opportunities. But there are ways women can use the internet to expand the economic opportunities and other opportunities, like what exactly the forum is doing. And then also in terms of representation and leadership, we've seen that the gender gaps persist at all levels of the information and communication technology sector, from program to leadership. So by bringing women virtually, we're able to support in this regard. In terms of the objectives of the forum is aimed at promoting social cohesion and mutual understanding, As we stated before, we have a lot of tribal issues, going on in the country. But the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum is a forum, when we come together as women of South Sudan, we hardly, talk about the issue of tribalism, because we see ourselves as women, and we see, our tribe is actually women, and that's what we always tell our members, that we are all women, and that's the tribe that we know, nothing else. And then we, it's also aimed at uniting all South Sudanese women globally, and also creatively engaging all the South Sudanese women in various, endeavors such as nation building, development, and women empowerment. We also come together to share, technical expertise and build a database for all the South Sudanese women, so that as we continue to give back to the community, we know exactly which areas are needed and who should be, connected with which community to give back to their community. We also share knowledge. We promote our culture. We seek opportunities, and we share knowledge such as, information such as jobs, conferences, scholarship, and so forth. And on scholarship, as a lot of us benefited from that kind of information. And that's why we were able to, to get our dream, in terms of getting to university. So this is usually very critical for our women to share such information to help women who might not have, information on scholarships or what to do. We also, try to to build a database of research and publication done by South Sudanese women. And this is also aimed at motivating more women to be able to do something, or, in terms of mentorship for our young girls, also to know that South Sudanese women, as they always refer to us in South Sudan, when there's anything happening, they will say Mara Saket. Mara Saket basically means just a woman, so we are trying also to prove to the community that we are not Mara Saket, we are not just women, but we are, a group, or we are people who can actually make a big change to our community, to our country. We can bring peace. We can sit at the negotiation table and decide on the future of the country and the future of our children. So we, this is what basically we're doing to as SSWI. Then the mission of the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum is to strive to provide opportunities for women to connect with and support one another, to facilitate meaningful approaches to networking, and embrace new ways of enriching our connections and raising awareness to our members and the community at large. Our vision. So the vision of the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum is to shape the future of the South Sudanese women by providing opportunities for development, fostering valuable connections, and facilitating member success through dialogue and career growth. The South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum envisions a South Sudan without war, without poverty, with strong accountability system and good governance, a country free of tribalism and division along ethnic lines. We envision a country with service delivery to every segment of the society, with free and access to education for all, and also access to healthcare, which is also part of the basic human rights. We envision a country where women are empowered, uplifted, and are equal members of the society. A country where women will not be subjected to any form of discrimination, including gender-based violence. We aim to promote gender equality and empower women and girls by removing all barriers that prevent the full participation of women and girls in economic, political, and public life. The South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum values are to recognize and promote one another, pursue growth and learning, link members with agencies hiring through the database of experts, and support, educate, and create awareness. As you can see from the organogram, we actually have a very, big, plan for the forum, where we want to tackle almost all the areas, because we have expertise, within the forum that can actually handle all these different departments. Maybe you can take a look at it later into details. And if you have comments also, as our sisters, you can also let us know on what is workable and what is not workable and what we can improve on, because we are here also to learn from you and see how you have moved on, as an organization. Then SSWI is fully registered in South Sudan. As you can see, our certificate. So every year we have to renew our certificate, and usually the renewal also is based on the activities that we have done, because We, in South Sudan, we do have a lot of briefcase NGOs, and of course, we don't want SSWI to be among those ones, because we believe together as women, we can do more than just having an organization, but being able to give back to the community. Thank you. I would let my colleague, Dr. Ann, pick from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha, for that. I'll talk mainly about some of the achievements that we've had as the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum. When the forum first started, it was during the period of COVID. And of course, there was not a lot of movement. There's not a lot of things going on in terms of travel and everything. And the online platforms became the major way of basically reaching out to people and interacting with other people. So during that time, the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum therefore earned a reputation for gathering through these online platforms a diverse, non-partisan and creative expertise from various fields who would discuss and address some of the most complex issues facing South Sudanese women. Since its inception, the forum has conducted weekly debates and special sessions that have totaled over 120 topics. And we've been able to bring in women from different sectors who are experts in what they do. And we have discussed issues of peace, of governance. We've talked about culture, civic education, sexual and gender-based violence, health, development, and a lot of many more topics. And we've also been able to involve men in these discussions who have featured to discuss some of these issues with us, because we know that as women only, we do not live in exclusion of men in the world, and therefore we must bring in other people to the table to discuss some of the issues that affect women, because we are all in those decision-making positions. If you look at the next slide, you just see one of our posters and some of our panelists there, and we've had women from all over the world, from the diaspora, women who are currently working in South Sudan. We've had members of parliament, we've had ministers, we've had nurses, we've had lawyers, and on the right of the screen, you can see some of our lawyers who were discussing a very important topic there. And most of these women, before the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum, nobody actually knew where they were or what they were doing. But this platform has been able to show the world that we are actually capable of solving many of the issues that affect our women in our country. So some of the other achievements that we have been able to develop key advocacy messages, and we've been able to send them to women both on the ground and also on the virtual platforms, and educating the general public regarding some of the issues that affect our society. And we are actually the only forum, I would say South Sudanese forum, that have been known to bring together representatives from government, from various agencies, and bring also the women at the grassroots level and women in the diaspora from all sectors and walks of life to discuss issues that affect the country and propose the solutions for the same. So we're giving an opportunity to everyone, no matter where they're from and no matter what they're doing, to be able to contribute to coming up with solutions for our country. We have also been able to address issues facing the nation and ensure accountability by featuring officials in key positions in various sectors of government. So we had people from the Ministry of Gender, we've had people from the Relief Commission, we've had the Minister of Defense discussing issues related to defense and the incorporation of women in defense. So we've had quite a number of discussions with people who hold key positions in our government and call them to accountability, because our members and our viewers are also able to ask these individuals questions regarding what they're doing for the country. We've also been able to advocate for the representation of women in government positions, in parliament, and reached out to those who have the opportunity to make a difference, to account for the lack of adherence to the 35% provision for women representation in key positions in our leadership. And some of these letters that we've written have actually bared fruit. Case in fact, the Central Equatoria State was able to actually try and put in some women in key positions in the government so that they can adhere to this 35% provision. We have also continuously been involved in discussions on the radio, educating the public on various issues concerning women and concerning the South Sudanese people. In October of 2020, we were able to collaborate with the UN Women to hold an event in Juba on the UN Security Resolution 1325 and affirmative action in South Sudan, and we were able to stream this live. And on this discussion, we had the current Speaker of the National Legislative Assembly, we had the Minister of Defense, we had the Minister of Gender, Child and Social Welfare, we had representatives from civil society, and it was quite an intense and very eye-opening discussion. And these were women who came from completely different streams, different sectors, but they were able to speak with one voice about the representation of women in every position in society and every sector. And we were also able to coordinate and successfully organize various donation drives in Juba for the teaching hospital, where we focus on the women wards, and we also focused on the children's hospital. And what I would like to point out is most of the donations we received for this projects were from individuals, women from all over the world, sparing some of the money that they had to reach out and help women in Juba, South Sudan, and were able to raise over $9,000 and about 700 beneficiaries were reached. And this was from donations from individuals. This shows that there's a lot of power in getting our women together and getting them to focus on specific goals to make a difference in our country. So for the first time in the history of our nation, the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum was able to bring together women from the 64 ethnic groups and all the states or 10 states of South Sudan together under one common umbrella with the goal of impacting our communities and developing our nation. Some of the photos there, you can see we have had various discussions, and for a long time, the UN Women were supporting us with internet and with a safe space for our women to participate in the discussion. And those photos just represent some of the panelists that we've had over the years. On the right of your screen, where there's a background banner, this was the meeting on the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325. And if you look closely, you can see the Minister of Defense there, Honorable Angelina Ten. You can see representatives from the embassies of the Netherlands, and you can see the Minister of Gender there, and some of our members who participated in this discussion. The next photos are photos from the donation drives that we've had. Our members are always willing and available to reach out, to take part in participating in helping the vulnerable in the community. And they were right there doing the donations, helping us with the packaging and distributing it to the beneficiaries. And if you look at the lowest part of the screen there, that is the hospital in Juba, and the beneficiaries were very happy to receive these donations that came from individual South Sudanese women from all over the world. So imagine a platform that is able to draw from the strength of numbers that we have in the diaspora and have an impact all the way in Juba, South Sudan. I think it's something amazing that personally, in my many years of living on this earth, I have not seen it before. And I would not have imagined that this is something that would have come from South Sudanese women, but it did. In 2022, we were able to implement a 3-month project for the USAID, what we referred to as the Seja Salam project. And in this project, we're able to discuss on an online platform and virtually on issues related to peace. And we were able to bring people together to do this. We were also able to facilitate a conference on civil engagement between the grassroots and civil society leaders on gender equality. If you look at the poster there with the USAID logo on top there, we brought women from all over South Sudan and from the 3 administrative areas, and we were able to interact and deliberate on how to strengthen cooperation in order to advance gender equality and promote peaceful coexistence in South Sudan. We also did a 3-month project where we, with the UN Women, that was funded by the Kingdom of the Netherlands, where we leveraged our reach in the internet in terms of social media and conducted targeted advocacy initiatives, facilitating dialogue opportunities to advance the women, peace and security agenda across South Sudan and among the South Sudanese in the diaspora. Now, the discussion on the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325, we did that in 2022 in Juba and virtually. And so there were many of our members joining us from all around the world through the virtual platform. And this is the strength of the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum. The fact that with the social media reach, with using the internet, we're able to reach out to many more people than those who are physically available to attend the physical events. And therefore, dissemination of information, advocacy gets a larger reach than if we were not using the internet and using the social media. The South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum was also able to develop a training manual for training male champions and also produce 2 policy briefs on gender equality. And this is important because, as we said before, we need to bring the men to the discussion table so that whatever it is that we set our hearts to do, they are with us and we're able to achieve more in that level of unity and collaboration and cooperation. So about 80 male champions were trained from May 4th to 5th in 2022. And these male champions were trained on women, peace and security, and to advance agenda for women representation and the protection of women. And this was a very successful training that took place at that time. The photos you're seeing there is one of the poster for the conference that I've already talked about. And these are some of the women who attended the conference and contributed. And we also had the representative of the UN Women there who came to speak to the women about what the UN Women was doing to be able to advance the agenda for women in our country. In 2021, we also organized the first ever awards ceremony that recognized the women of South Sudan who have made an impact and contribution in their societies, both in South Sudan and in the diaspora. And it was a very emotional event. And we thank all the people who contributed towards making it a success. And again, most of the contributions we received were from individuals, women of South Sudan, and also some gentlemen from South Sudan. And we got a bit of support also from some of the international agencies, and we were able to give awards to a number of women who excelled in various sectors, in leadership, in health, in sports. It was amazing. I've actually never seen anything like that. That was one of the most memorable events in the history of the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum. So we aimed to do this because we wanted to motivate South Sudanese women to increase performance and productivity and morale and accountable governance, and to inspire the youth to aspire to excellence, because they could see other women who have gone before them, who have done great things in their various areas of expertise, and were able to overcome great odds to get to where they are. What you can see down there in the photos, that is Honorable Aya Benjamin Warile, who is the current National Minister for Gender, Child and Social Welfare, and she got the overall Peace Award. The story behind it was amazing. This is a woman who suffered great loss because she lost her husband because of the conflict within our country, but she was able to put aside that and go and serve the same nation that took so much away from her. And it was amazing to see as she received this award. You can see her there in the next slide on the photo in white on the right, shedding tears as she was announced to be the winner. And on the other side, you can see also one of our honorable members who also came, was one of the winners of the Education Award. And she's currently working within the national government in the, I think it's the Ministry of Education, if Asha will correct me if I am wrong. So we hope to be able to continue this award so that we can continue to appreciate the women of South Sudan who are making an impact in their communities, whether it's in South Sudan or in the diaspora, and therefore create mentors for the women, the young women who come after us, to be able to aspire to greater, to be able to aspire to impact that will influence generations to come. In February 2023, this is very recent, we held a breakfast meeting in South Sudan and also streamed it virtually so that our members could also join us. And the objectives were to provide ways in which the women of South Sudan can break barriers to women's progress and provide an opportunity for our women to come together and develop relationships with each other with the purpose of promoting each other in various sectors and fostering the spirit of collaboration among South Sudanese women in the various sectors. And that was a very successful meeting. You can see those very bright, colorful photos of the women who attended. And I'd like to bring your attention to the photo on your lowermost right. You can see, well, let's just look at the photos on the lower part of the screen. We have the Right Honorable Gemma Nunu Kumba, who is the first female speaker of the National Legislative Assembly. And next is the Honorable Aya Benjamin Warile, who is the current Minister for Gender, Child and Social Welfare. And you can see the other photo very well, but it shows both Honorable Aya and Honorable Gemma, Right Honorable Gemma Nunu Kumba, just standing and talking to each other. And what is of note is that these women belong to two different political parties, but because of that desire to make a difference, to make an impact in the country, because of the fact that we know we are women and it is us who will drive the agenda of our nation, we put aside our political differences, we put aside our religious differences, we put aside our ethnic differences and come together as one, as the women of South Sudan, to make a difference in the lives of our people, and especially in the lives of women and the vulnerable in our country. So some of the key guests that we have had for our panel discussions range from various sectors, from the National Legislative Assembly. I've mentioned Right Honorable Gemma Nunu Kumba, to Honorable Rebecca Joshua, who was a former Minister of the Roads and Bridges and was a very famed journalist during the time pre-independence, while we were still struggling for a country, South Sudan. We've also had Honorable Sarah Cleto Rial, who is the first female governor, Western Barrel Ghazal State, and the Minister of Defense, and quite a number of our leaders, and some men also. Honorable Joseph Bakasoro, Honorable James Hoth, who is the Minister of Labor, and Honorable Dr. Manasseh Lomole, who is the chairperson of the South Sudan Relief and Rehabilitation Commission. So this is a forum that brings individuals from all over South Sudan who impact on our country in various ways, from the very top to the grassroots. And I think it's important to have a platform that is able to do that. And this increases accountability and increases that feeling of ownership for a country that we need to take forward from the destruction of conflict and war. I don't know, Aisha, would you like to talk about the challenges, or should I go ahead?
Please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, so we've had quite a number of challenges with the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum. As you can see from the introduction that Nyathon gave, we are currently working in our various professions in other institutions. However, because of our heart for our country, we have given our time and energy, and sometimes even money, Aisha, to make this a success. And many of the women in the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum, many of our members, many of the people who run the organization are volunteers. And we have been running this forum without continuous funding for the past few years since we have been in existence. We've also have had difficulty having access to stable internet and a safe space. And quite a huge chunk of what we do is based on the internet in terms of the reach and the access to numbers who are able to listen into our discussions. At the state level, however, our women are unable to participate because of this lack of access to internet and to safe spaces. And therefore, since our inception as the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum, we have been operating on volunteer basis. However, we all know that this is not exactly sustainable in the long run. And therefore, availability of funding to the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum is going to enable us to be able to impact even more on our country in terms of development and pushing the agenda for women to be involved in the post-conflict reconstruction of our country and for women's rights to be upheld. So it's been a very difficult journey. We've had a few organizations supporting us, and we are very grateful for that. But the funding is not continuous, and it's for specific projects, and therefore most of the people who run this platform, including Aisha and I, are running it on a volunteer basis because of the burden that we have for our country, South Sudan. And we hope that in the near future, we will have people who are willing to fund us because of the difference that I believe that this forum is going to make in the lives of the people of South Sudan. We hope and we aspire that in the future, the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum will be involved in service delivery focused on women, the vulnerable, and children. And we will be involved in various fields, including education, healthcare, youth empowerment, business and financial sectors, in security, in governance, in democracy, in women's political participation and decision-making at various levels of government. We will focus on women, peace and security, in legal protection of women and the prevention of gender-based violence, and in policy training, advocacy, and research using the diverse expertise we have within the forum. And we plan to continue to be involved in grassroots mobilization, taking the message to the people on the ground who don't really have access, and giving them education and empowering them and sensitizing them, and also advocating on various issues affecting the South Sudanese women. We have thousands of members from diverse professional backgrounds, and therefore we believe we have the wealth of human resource to enable us to achieve all the above. We will focus on post-conflict reconstruction through the development of policy briefs, the dissemination of the same, and advocacy in order to influence policy change and implementation of these policies for sustainable impact. And we hope to be able to partner with your esteemed organization in making a better world for the women of South Sudan and the children of South Sudan. And we are so grateful to have been given the opportunity to be on the Quorum initiative today, and to just talk about our passion and our dream for the women of South Sudan. The next photo, you can see one of the key messages we were able to send out on GBV, and emphasizing that the root cause of GBV is gender inequality. So the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum is able to reach out to thousands of women, in fact, millions, from some of our diverse discussions that we're able to put out into the internet. And we hope to be able to translate some of these messages to the grassroots and be able to also give them to the women who are currently have no access to the internet or to technology. But that will only be possible through collaboration with various agencies who will allow us to be able to reach these women with these messages on the ground in South Sudan. Thank you for giving us this opportunity. For more information, of course, you can go to our website and our Facebook page and our YouTube pages. You can access some of our discussions there. And we are so, so grateful, me and Aisha and Nyathon, who's also a very big part of us, for this opportunity that you have given us to talk about the women of South Sudan and what we would like to see in our country and what we would want achieved through the South Sudanese Women Intellectuals Forum. Thank you so much for that, Nyathon. I hope I haven't taken too much time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Ann, and thank you so much, Aisha. I would just want to acknowledge as well, Dora Pony as well, who's a very big part of SSWI, is here too, and she's doing amazing work as well as part of the women. As the presentation, it's very clear that, you know, so the future of South Sudan is a woman. South Sudanese women held the country together when the men were in war. And part of most of our product of this generation are a product of the hard work of the women. This now for us, the next generation, the South Sudanese Women Intellectual Forum is bringing us together to have a unified voice to be able as well to give back. You know, and I'm really glad that we are recognizing our older generation because they did a lot during the Civil War. And I think for some of you who might not have a context of South Sudan has been in civil war for the last 2 decades with the North and the same country, the North and the South. And basically the South was struggling for self-determination, in which we separated in 2011. So we are a product of that civil war of 2 decades. That we are here today. With that said, I know our time is running low, and I would really like to give a chance to our audience as well to be able to ask 1 or 2 questions before we hand it over to Meg. There was a question that someone said, how can the women of Quorum help the women of South Sudan? And I think as well has become very clear in the challenges as well, some of the key areas that South Sudanese women, you know, can partner and be helped. So I don't know if that question is already answered. And if not, then Aisha or Dr. Ann can quickly just answer before we give it back to Meg in 1 or 2 minutes.
I just wanted, that was my question, by the way, Nyathon and Aisha, and the presentation was amazing. So as I just want sort of that one thing that we can do, because there's so much, and it sounds like it's fundraising. That sounds like what you're asking, but if you could just crystallize that for us, that would be really helpful. Sort of that one thing or 2.
Okay, and then as well, let me just add another question. Somebody asked, from where do you draw your personal strength? I'm moved by what you have done. So maybe Aisha, I have 1 question, and then Dr. Ann has one question, and then we hand it over back to the quorum. Thank you.
Aisha, you can take the first one, and we can talk about strength.
Thank you once again for the opportunity about how we can collaborate. Of course, we're looking for partnership because we've seen how far, you know, your organization has really reached now that you have also, you're involved in the UK, I think London too. So we want to see how maybe South Sudan can be one of the first African countries that, your organization is going to reach. And then, we start a partnership from there. And then how we're going to do the partnership, of course, it will require us sitting down and looking at your strength and what you're able to do and what are your mandate and what is your limitation, so those are some conversation that maybe we can have later, but we need partnership and we want South Sudan to be the first African countries where actually you're going to be present in. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha. I agree with you completely. And this is something that will actually require a sit down on the various areas that we can collaborate with the Quorum initiative. Now, when the other question was about where we drew our personal strengths. So I'll speak for myself and maybe in a sense speak for Aisha and Nyathon, because we basically grew up in a similar situation, in the fact that we grew up in exile. We were basically refugees. And when you're young, you really don't realize you don't belong until much, much later on when you start realizing, okay, I'm from a different country, my country is in war, I can't go back now, I hope to go back soon. And I think for me, what I can say, what has given us the greatest strength is the fact that because of our experiences, we do not want the generations to come after us to experience the same things. We do not want them to face conflict. We don't want them to face death. We don't want them to face scarcity. We do not want them to face discrimination in nations where they don't belong. We want them to have a home that they can come to, that they can be proud of, a home that is developed, a home that is at peace, a home where they are accepted wholly for who they are. And that is where we draw our strength. The fact that we do not want the future generations, our children, our children's children, our younger brothers and sisters to face the same struggles that we have faced, that our parents before us faced. We want this to be different. We want the future to be different. And that is where we draw our strength from. I think I speak for all of us who have had to live through conflict and who have had to be refugees or exiled in countries that were not our own.
Thank you, Dr. Anne. Maybe just to add something to that, recently I traveled to South Sudan and I happened to visit one of the national hospitals in Juba. So one of our volunteers' niece had given birth, and then she was going to see the niece quickly before we had to go somewhere else with her. But then she delayed there, so I happened to go to the maternity ward. And when I entered, I only saw mother sleeping on the bed, so I didn't pay attention to what was happening. But then, I started looking around because I wanted to see where the babies were. And it is actually good that I was able to look on the floor, because otherwise I could have stepped on those babies. So basically, because of not having beds for the babies, once they're born, and the baby was just like 2 hours old, so the babies are put on the floor. And literally, so when I saw that and I said, women, we have the strength. We can still do fundraising and get a carpenter to even make beds for these children, for this bed to, for the kids to lie on them. So that again gave a lot of motivation, and also being in South Sudan again to see how the suffering is increasing every day. The question is, when is this going to end? Because we cannot do anything without peace. We really need peace in that country. But again, at the same time, we cannot sit back and say we want the government to do anything, or everything, because we must play our role and we must do our part as the women of South Sudan. And that's some of the motivations that we are having as the women, because as we travel and we see those future generation that we are referring to sleeping on the floor, and the cold floor, cement, cold cement. And then the hospital, sorry to say, not hygienic, like you can't imagine that, the level of, hygiene at that hospital, and having a newborn baby being put on the floor. And some of the mothers, they don't even come with, clothes to wrap them, receiving blankets and stuff. So these kids are literally, they're exposed to pneumonia. It was heartbreaking. But again, I thought about what can we do as women to improve this situation, because nobody else is going to do it if we don't do it as women. Thank you.
Thank you, Aisha. Thank you, Aisha. Diane and Meg, we've killed the time. It's now 1 p.m. So I'd like to hand it over to Meg to say a few words and wrap it up, and then Diane. But thank you so much for giving us the platform to be able to present who we are and what we do. Thank you. Back to
Yeah. Nyathon, Aisha, and Dr. Ann, thank you so much for sharing so much, not only of yourselves, but of all the incredible work that you're doing. As I think you got for some of the feedback, you've definitely moved us. We've learned a ton today, or at least I'll say I've learned a ton that I didn't know before. I'm so inspired by your courage and your resilience and the amazing work that you're doing and how much you've achieved already. So I have to tell you, if we were all here, we would give you we would give you a huge round of applause for what you've accomplished to date, knowing that there's so much more to be done. It would be an absolute honor, and I will make the decision on behalf of the organization, that we would love to have South Sudan as our first African country as part of our memberships. So just know that we embrace you wholeheartedly and thrilled by that opportunity. We look forward to sitting down and talking about how we can truly partner, because I feel not only is there a lot hopefully we can do to support you, there's amazing things we can learn from all of you in terms of our own efforts that we're trying to make to take action and create change. I think in places where we're not dealing with an immediate issue of civil war or major conflict, we're still dealing with a lot of lack of progress. And so I think we can inspire each other, hopefully, to continue the fight for women around the globe. I really congratulate and salute you for all that you're doing, and really look forward to connecting. I think the action for the Quorum Committee, we never leave a meeting without talking about what we can all do as a community. I think first and foremost, this should maybe be the first of continuing to educate ourselves about South Sudan and what's going on there. So I'm going to challenge the whole community to take that up as one of the action steps from today. The second thing is there were so many incredible nuggets of information in that presentation about positive ways to take action. So I felt like that if you would all take the time to actually take a look at that presentation again, I'm convinced we will each be inspired to pull something from that and put it into our own world and sphere of influence. So that would be the second action I would ask of everybody. I'm so grateful for all of your time today, Nyathon, Aisha, Dr. Ann, in terms of everything that you've shared with us. And we very much look forward to taking the journey with you in the future in terms of how we all work collectively on empowering women who are going to be the change in the society we live in today, no question about it. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Diane, is there any last information we should impart with the group that I'm forgetting about?
No, just thank you again. I'm just so grateful for the women of SSWI. We have a few events coming up, a retreat in May. All that information will be in the follow-up email. And just thank you so very much for letting us learn about you. And we're very excited to collaborate going forward.